The Liberal Democrats have elected Sir Ed Davey as their new leader, choosing him over Layla Moran. He's been acting in the role since Jo Swinson lost her seat in December's general election, if you cast your mind back. And we can speak to Sir Ed Davey now. Morning.
Good morning.
You've spoken how you want to make the party nationally relevant again. I wonder how you're going to do that.
We'll start off by listening to people. I mean, we've got to be honest. We've had three poor successive general election results. And although we've been doing well in local government and our local campaigners listen to people and serve their communities and get things done, nationally, people don't see us like that. They seem to think, they've been sending us a message that we're not on their side, we're not looking after ordinary people. And therefore, if you're going to turn that around, you've got to listen to people. And I think in the situation of COVID, where so much is uncertain about the next week, let alone the next year or two, that listening exercise is even more important. So that's where I'm starting.
But you can't just sponge off what all the members want to do. To lead a party is to make decisions yourself. Are there any interesting departures in policy that you want to change in the party in terms of, the party was saying for a while that you wanted to rejoin the EU. That was a pledge. Will that be staying?
Well, I started the leadership election campaign with the party talking about a greener economy, a fairer society, and a more caring society. And I've been talking a lot about economics and how we can have a green recovery, and talking about investing in education, housing, and talking a lot including about my own personal story about caring and what COVID has shown us about that. So that's the vision I put to the members during the leadership election.
But on one of the
Clearly, I'll be
biggest...
taking that forward. On the rejoin question, both Layla and I were clear that we don't think that is the right policy. We need to listen to people. We need to look at what happens when Brexit is completed. We are very much against a no-deal Brexit, and we will campaign against a no-deal Brexit. After all, Boris Johnson said he didn't want a no-deal Brexit. So we all know that will be a disaster. So we're very clear about that. But as Liberal Democrats, we are internationalist. We believe working with other countries is in our mutual interest, whether it's on trade, whether it's on climate change, whether it's on trying to find a vaccine for this appalling pandemic. So we absolutely believe in working with other countries, and we'll always make the argument for cooperating with other countries. But we've got to do that in the context of where the British people are at and where we are with the relationship with the European Union.
But as it stands, in terms of English politics, the Liberal Democrats are not in the conversation, are they? Pollster extraordinaire John Curtis said that your party was flirting with irrelevance. How are you going to make the party and you better known?
Well, I've been talking about this listening program, and I'm going to keep going back to that. If we're going to fix this problem, if we're going to reconnect with the voters, the first thing you do is you go and listen to them and engage in proper conversations with them. So that's the first thing. But I don't think we start quite in the weak position that you say. We're running 50 councils across the country. We've got a minister in the Welsh Assembly. We control £5 billion of expenditure in local government. So we have people in power in our party. And if you look at how they've been successful, they have really engaged with their local communities. So learning the lessons from our local government colleagues is something that will be very high on my list, because they've been doing it and they've been bringing voters to their side. But it's at the national level where I think we've really failed. And, I've been frustrated. I'll be frank with you. I don't think we talked as a party about the issues that voters care most about. Even at the last election, we focused so much on Brexit. We didn't get over our messages on climate change, on the wider environment, on the wider economy, on childcare. I want to make sure in listening to the people, again, we really understand what their priorities are.
But if you go and listen to the people, go and talk to voters, it is overwhelmingly likely that they'll say, "Who are you?" In a Times poll, only 7% of the public know who you are.
Well, that's always been the fate of a Liberal Democrat leader at the beginning. I remember Nick Clegg telling me that he'd go down high streets in many towns and cities, and the journalist would take a photograph of him and show it to 10 voters, and none of them recognised him, and he went on to be the Deputy Prime Minister. So I'm afraid that's the reality that I have to deal with. I'm happy to face up to that. But the challenge that I have to fix the problem for the Liberal Democrats, for the values I passionately believe in, The challenge is to reconnect with voters, and I'm going to be doing that, focusing in on that. And I think we can do it. We have been successful in the past, and not just a local government. I remember us doing incredibly well at many general elections where we were seen as a powerful, distinctive, and principled voice. On the Iraq War, on climate change, and a whole range of issues. We can be that again, but the journey to that position starts by a very, very big listening exercise.
If you do listen to voters, you'll know that voters don't all speak with one voice. Obviously, we have an electoral system where one side wins, but there is still a range of views of what we should be doing going forward with Brexit. Some people who still feel uncomfortable with it. Do you feel that you let those people down, those people who weren't happy with Brexit, because your victories in the European elections made you complacent and made you assume that everybody was on board with that message?
Listen, we let ourselves down in the sense that we are passionately pro-European, we're internationalists, we believe it's right for our country to work with other countries on trade, on climate change, on finding a vaccine for this appalling disease, a whole range of issues where it's in our best interest, the best interest of British people, where we work closely and cooperate with other countries. And, I was deeply distressed by the decision, but I have to recognise that Boris Johnson won a mandate under the first past the post to push Brexit through. That's what he's doing. And at the next election, we will be outside the European Union. And I have to deal with that. And the Liberal Democrats have to deal with that. And I want to talk to people who remain pro-European, as well as people who were less convinced, and show them that we are relevant to their lives and can improve the lives of their families and their communities. And I will focus in on that.
You talk about cooperating with other countries and wanting to be internationalist. What about cooperating with other parties? Of course, everything that you're talking about there can only be done in government. Do you foresee the Liberal Democrats being back in government this decade?
Well, listen, I believe in fixing the problem in front of you. And we're a long way from that proposition at the moment.
So you won't be in government in the decade?
Hello, can I hear you? I've lost you.
Will you be in government this decade?
Listen, I'm not going to start making predictions about the future. This is my first day in office. I've got a massive task to do. Do I want the Liberal Democrats to be in power again? Yes, I do. But I want us to be in power by showing to the British people that we understand their concerns and fears. We understand their hopes and dreams, and that we will be the party to both best represent them. So, one step at a time. We're not in a good position now. The general election review, which looked not just at the 2019 election and what went wrong, but the previous two elections, gave us a lot of food for thought. It didn't pull its punches. We published that, unlike any other party, being pretty transparent about what we need to do. And I want to continue that so we can rebuild this party, build solid foundations, so we can be relevant again.
But 10 years is a long time. And are you saying to me that you are happy with the idea of the Lib Dems being something of a protest party for this decade?
Oh, no, of course not. I want us to be a party that can be back in government again. Of course I do. And by the way, we are in government, in local government. We run 50 councils, either by ourselves or with others. We're in control of £5 billion of expenditure. So, let's also see that in that context. And, I think if you look at what we have achieved when we've been in power, both at local government and national government, we've got a proud record. I mean, I was proud as cabinet minister to nearly quadruple Britain's renewable power. The Liberal Democrats have the best record on climate change of any British party. So, I think we've got a very good base to build upon. I'm just being realistic. I'm frank. I'm pretty honest with you that we have a problem at the moment and it needs to be fixed.
It took a very long time for you to be elected. Do you think it's damaging that the leadership contest in the Lib Dems took so long and that you were effectively without much of a voice during a very, very important time for the country?
Well, I don't think it matters it took so long, and I disagree that we weren't without a voice. One of the biggest questions about COVID is what went wrong and who was responsible, and that's going to require an independent public inquiry. And you're talking to the person who won that commitment from Boris Johnson, the dispatch box. He'd been dodging the issue. He'd been refusing to answer. And I phrased a question which caught him. And I think he didn't even mean to give it. But because of the way I phrased the question, I got that commitment out of him. So, no other politician has done that. So, the idea we've not been relevant is just simply not true. And we are fighting our own with just 11 of us in the House of Commons, pushing and holding the government to account and working with other parties to do that. Very happy as an opposition party leader to work with other opposition leaders to hold this incompetent government to account. We need to, the British people need to do that. But I also have to have my eye on the strategic issue, which is how we make ourselves relevant and meaningful to the British people. How do British people look at us and say, yeah, they are the people who've got my back, who understand my concerns and are voicing them and have got solutions to them.
Looking back over your career and rewinding right to the very start of your career and thinking about the challenge that you've got ahead of you to make the party nationally relevant again, do you wish you'd chosen working at MI6 over working for Paddy Ashdown?
Listen, it's very interesting you say that because, when MI6 interviewed me and so on, I can't say I wasn't tempted. And we had a big discussion. I can't tell you where. I'm probably breaking the official secrets now into talking about it. But no, I don't regret that. Working with Paddy was an amazing experience. There was a former soldier and former diplomat and a brilliant leader. He inspired me, and his liberal vision, I think, inspired many, many people. And indeed, when I think about the challenge in front of me to reconnect the party, it's quite reminiscent of the challenge that Paddy faced back in 1988-89 when he was taking over the leadership. And he did a listening exercise. He called it Beyond Westminster, and he travelled around the country, meeting people, talking to them, and wrote a book about it. And that's on my reading list to reread that book.
And just very, very finally, apologies. One thing I just want to ask you about in the year that we're living in, where everyone has a keener eye on diversity in all its shades, I wonder what you think about the state of affairs that of the three biggest political parties in England, we have an Old Etonian and two Knights of the Realm.
Well, I'm not going to apologise for the Queen deciding to knight me, and I recognise some of the work that I've done on climate change. And I'm very proud of that. But in terms of diversity, I am a strong believer in a more diverse country and a more diverse politics. I'm really proud that Liberal Democrats have got more women MPs now than we've got male MPs. We've previously had a real problem with that, but we've really begun to answer that.
Isn't that because lots of the male MPs lost their seats?
And I want us to make sure we represent all Britain by having far more black MPs. I want to have a black MP for Britain, for the Liberal Democrats in Britain. And we've got two MPs, one Layla Moran, half Palestinian, Munira Wilson from an Asian background. We've made some progress. I want to see us do more.
Sir Ed Davey, new leader of the Liberal Democrats Party, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.